One of the most popular games that we've reviewed is Seven Wonders. This fast and light card drafting game has a surprising amount of strategy for something that plays out in less than an hour and supports all the way up to 7 players. Since it came out in 2010, 2 expansions have been released that add new features, new cards, new gameplay, and new player interaction. They're called Leaders and Cities, and they can each be added to the base game separately, or you can add both of them together.
The mechanics of Seven Wonders are simple. Each player has 3 rounds, or ages, in order to develop a tableau of cards in front of them that will earn them victory points. They can also develop the wonder on their wonder board to get them even more points. Each age has a deck of cards, which is divided amongst the players. In each turn, a player chooses a card out of their hand, plays it face up to get the benefits listed, or face down under their wonder board to develop their wonder, or discards that card for 3 gold.
Now, the cards you play may grant you resources or coins, they might give you victory points at the end of the game, or they might increase your military might. At the end of each age, every player has to compare their military strength with that of their neighbors, and then they gain or lose victory points depending on the outcome. At the end of the game, the player with the most victory points wins. The first expansion, Leaders, adds a new wonder and new guild cards, and includes a deck of entirely new cards called Leaders. Leaders enter play at the start of each age, and they will either give you a new way of earning victory points at the end of the game, or give you a boost to your resources, your military strength, or your other abilities from the moment they enter play.
So the game now begins with a leader phase, in which each player is dealt 4 leader cards. They draft one of them and then pass the rest to their left. This continues until each player has 4 leaders that they've chosen. These get placed face down in front of them. Now, each age has a new phase, called the Recruitment Phase, at its start. During the Recruitment Phase, a player can purchase one of the leaders that they've chosen and place it in their tableau. Or they can place it face down under their wonder board, or they can discard it, just like they would any other card. After this, the age continues as normal.
Leaders also introduces 2 unique guilds that only work with this expansion: the Courtesans and the Diplomats. The owner of the Courtesans Guild gets to place their courtesan token on the card of one of their neighbor's leaders, and they immediately gain that leader's abilities and benefits. The Diplomats Guild will give you victory points at the end of the game based on the number of leaders in neighboring cities.
The second expansion, Cities, adds enough cards and wonders to play with 8 players, and introduces 2 new concepts, debt and diplomacy. The game pretty much plays the same way as normal, except at the beginning of an age you'll start with 8 cards rather than 7.
So at the end of a turn in which a player played a card with a debt symbol, every single other player must either take that number of debt tokens from the bank or pay the equivalent in coins. And you can also split the cost between coins and debt tokens. At the very end of the game, each one of your debt tokens is going to cost you a victory point.
Playing a card with the diplomacy symbol lets you take a diplomacy token from the bank, and then during the next conflict resolution stage, you can discard that token rather than taking part in the conflict. So this means that the players on either side of you will be considered adjacent in terms of comparing military might.
Cities also adds a few gray cards with white mask symbols on them. At the end of the game, each of these symbols can be used to copy a green science symbol from either one of your neighbors. The game also adds a team play variant in which players work together in pairs that can share information such as the contents of their hands, and who also score together to win at the end and combine their military might for conflict resolution.
So Seven Wonders in the basic game is all about building points engines, and now the Leaders expansion just adds to that. It lets you build more powerful, more complex point engines, and it just sort of drives that mechanic home. So if you like that in the first game, you're gonna love the Leaders expansion. Also, with all those leader cards that you've gotten, and there are a lot of them, it's going to change your strategy depending on which one ends up in your tableau. So you could change your strategy every time you play this game because every leader gives you a different strength, and that changes the way that you play. Also, if you really like Seven Wonders, if you love the mechanic already, and a lot of people do, then you'll be happy to know that Leaders actually doesn't change the base mechanic all that much. It adds a little bit extra stuff to do, adds another phase here and there, but honestly, the base game is pretty much the same, so you just get more of what you like.
Now, cities really does change the mechanics of the game just a little bit. That debt mechanic means that not only is there now kind of a take that element to the game that can also affect a whole bunch of players at once, but it also means that coins are a much more important resource. They're not just there so you can spend them on yet more resources, you absolutely have to manage them or they can really end up costing you at the end of the game. The diplomacy feature is also a really interesting solution to a problem that a lot of people have had with Seven Wonders, which is, even though it's a game for large groups, you're really only interacting directly with the two people that sit right next to you. Diplomacy changes that around just a little bit, and it's a very nice solution to that problem. Now, this does all mean that Seven Wonders becomes less of an engine building game and more of a balance between that and resource management, whether it's your military might, which you now have to watch much more carefully, or whether it's your coins that you don't want to run out of. And so it starts feeling a little bit more like other traditional Euro games. It might lose a little bit of its uniqueness, but it does add some very interesting elements.